hear. Most Americans think they can determine who black is. Meanwhile, most of them never even traveled outside of the United States to see what black is. Most of them talk about Africa and they've even seen Africa.
Why does it seem like some of the roles between men and women are reversed?
Guess ladies first. I'm the only one on here, right?
There you
So,
go.
since I was the one that brought this, I guess this topic up. The
First of all,
reason
why
for
is it?
this
Why?
is because
First of all, let me ask you something. Why is it a topic? Why? What made you ask that particular question? How about that?
I feel like it's more prevalent now that women are now taking on the roles of men. There's a lot of men who are now acting more feminine based upon them maybe being raised in single parent homes, or society has just made it okay for them to not really possess their masculine energy. So for me, it's just like it's a problem because we have this generation of young people or males. They're not understanding or knowing how to operate in masculine energy. It's like they're missing a lot of real men in their lives.
Is that an Atlanta thing, or is that just you think in general all around?
No, I feel like that's in general all around. Doesn't matter if it's in Atlanta, California, Florida. It doesn't. I see it a lot, based upon conversations, different households, family dynamics, and so.
What say you, Antoine? Do you feel like, or not feel like, do you think that there are more men acting in women roles?
I would say yeah. I would say um, due to the baby mama epidemic, I call it, because they're being raised by women, right? So they're being raised by the mannerisms they see, and they're being raised by what they hear, and they're being raised by where they go. Come with me, we're going here. Come with me, we're going there, right? And that has an influence on a young child because that's the molding stage, right? So if he doesn't have a father prevalent to say once in a while you're going to come to the garage, once in a while we're going to do the guy thing over here, separate to teach him how to separate the two, right? Um, and also it has to deal with the rise of feminism. It also has to do with the rise of how what's being taught in schools with the whole binary, transgender. I mean, there's a list, right? So they're having all these feminine traits come towards them, and if there's no man in the home to decipher between the two and say, whoa, wait a minute, right? To put his foot down and say, no, that's not how we rock here, right? Then you have, if a woman takes on the role of a man, she's gonna have masculine traits. She's gonna bring it to the table, right? Because she has nobody. She's depending on this person in the mirror, and so she's gonna be reactive, right? And she's going to be proactive to what she has to do. So she's going to be reactive to either way because there's no man there, right? So she has to do the sum of both roles. And having that, you have to take on a heavier burden. So you have to kind of like be the tough guy. You have to be both because you don't have that separation, right? Because you don't have that father figure. And that's if she had a father in her life, right? Because what is it? Close to 80% of childs are born out of wedlock and no father around and all that, right? So if you don't have a father around, what are you basing it on, right? So you have no male figure, no dominant male figure. What you have is what's in front of you. And listen, they're doing the best they can do without that person being there, right? Because even when I was growing up, I was fortunate enough to have both of them in the house. Lucky me. But I can tell you this: when my mother was around, I was with my mom. But when my dad came home, it was like, "Yeah, you be coming down here now. Let your mom do what she has to do in the kitchen, right?" It was a little change in dynamic when he came home from work. So I think putting that burden on the woman is what may bring on their masculinity. And like I said, and since we're talking black women, it's heavy. I mean, personally, I'm not into she males and all that shit. and the clapping. I don't do none of that, but I can understand. I could put an understanding to it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying they should. Some of them take it and rock with it, and they love it, right? But there are those that are unfortunately they're in that role, and they wish they had somebody to take on the heavy lifting, right? Take that weight off their shoulder, come home and just, like my father used to come home from work, sit down on the couch, and my mother took over, right? She did the whole catering to him thing. So he knew he could take off that masculine shield, sit down, beer would come over, and the Coke or whatever he wanted. Dinner would be ready by 6, and he'd do all this stuff that needed to be done. He'd tinker in the garage while stuff is being done. So he'd do the father thing. And I think if you don't have that, you get what you get. These boys today, like I said, I'm the first to say, these boys today are pussified. I mean, I look at them and go, God damn, you definitely don't have a father at home, because your father wouldn't let you act like that. He wouldn't let you talk like that. He wouldn't let you treat women like that, right? He'd give you the back of his hand, right? He'd say, no, you don't speak like that, right? That's what my father would do. I couldn't misspeak to my mother. It would be like I'd be sent across the room. That'd be considered child abuse today.
Are you saying that based off of what your answer, your response would be to this question is the reason why the gender roles or behaviors may seem to be reversed is due to a lot of children being raised by single mothers?
Yeah, it starts from home. It starts at home. Everything starts at home. Everything. I mean, if you're going to pinpoint a source, where do they spend the most time besides school or in the streets? But it starts at home, from the time they wake up to the breakfast on the table to the time they go to bed and the last words they hear. You know, babies don't understand what you're saying, so they go off emotion, your vibe. They can hear music. They don't know what the words are, but they'll start crying if it's in a certain lullaby tune. It's the same thing. So if you're raised with that, it's only a matter of time before it sticks. Right?
I don't know. I kind of disagree. Not disagree, but I think my perception is different because I'm younger than you guys. So I think the reverse roles come from my generation hearing for so long that men need to be more in touch with their emotions. And I think that type of trait is usually connected to femininity. So I think this generation of men and the ones coming after us, their mothers and even some, probably even their fathers, just saying you need to be able to communicate how you feel. And I feel like sometimes that's considered to be a feminine trait. I get it from my wife all the time. Like, instead of explaining how I feel, I go quiet because I don't want to say anything out of anger, and two, I don't want to say, if I'm being honest, I don't want to say anything that makes her cry. No man wants to be the reason that his wife is upset. So I get that sense, and I think another thing is, we've had this conversation before as far as gender roles, is that a lot of women ain't putting up with a Negro who's going to come home and sit on the couch after working a 10-hour day. That's just not going to happen, because a lot of women are working outside the house too. You're not about to come home and say, baby, get me a beer and I'm going to kick up my feet and you deal with the kids and cook dinner. And she's going to be looking at you like, nigga, I work 10 hours as well. You need to help me with these kids or cook dinner. So that's just the way it is. And I think a lot of things it's more empowering as a man for you to be able to do these things, because if a woman's going to come back at me and say, well, I can cook and I can clean and I'm still going to work, what are you doing? And then at the same time, you want to, like, I do the cooking and the cleaning as well, and I go to work. At the end of the day, I want you to be my peace, not my angst. So for me and my generation, I think the gender roles are reversed because we're trying to become more independent. When you start hearing a lot of these, influencers, and because you see it all the time on social media, women saying, I don't need a man, or individuals saying, women
Those
ain't
are the ones that
this.
can't really get one, though. When I hear a woman say that, just because you can't get one, I get it, but you can't get one. Just say you can't get one. It's easy. You can't get one.
Now some of them can't get one. Yeah. OnlyFans is popping now. Don't be.
No,
there's somebody out paying for it.
No, wait. You can get the smashing, but you can't get.
Yeah.
You can get the Friday night, Saturday night. You can do the spreading thing, but you ain't.
But you want the 7 days a week, 365. I get you.
You can't get one. Like, put the ring on it. Your mind. Let's do the real thing.
What you got to say, Coach? Why you think the gender roles of behaviors may seem reversed?
Yeah, so I'm probably like the person that likes to challenge paradigms. And so when you consider this in its entirety, I think the answer to all of this is actually found in a question, right? When you look at, so again, the question, why do gender roles or behaviors may seem? So it's the question is a matter of perspective. Depending upon who you talk to, gender roles may seem reversed or behaviors may seem reversed. And I literally just had this conversation during the class I was teaching today. I don't believe it's reversed. I believe the awareness of a thing helps you to see something that you didn't see before. So now you look at today, I think JL mentioned it just now, men are becoming more in tune with their emotions, right? So just because a man is more in tune with his emotion doesn't mean that he is behaving feminine. It just means that he's more in tune with his emotion. That doesn't mean that it's masculine or feminine. It's an emotion. Everybody has them. So I think the old paradigm stated that men weren't in tune with their emotions or men don't have emotions and things of that nature. So now when you look at these men with these emotions, we claim it as being feminine or whatever that looks like. Um, so when we look at things, again, gender roles, right? So gender roles, she washed the dishes, she cooked. Wait, oh, pause. I know how to wash dishes. I wash clothes. I know how to cook. Antoine got his own set of pots. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, when you look at it from that perspective, what is a gender role? I think when we consider it from that way, it really shows more so of how we view things than what reality really is. And I have a thought when it comes to that, right? I believe the idea when it comes down to we can't really understand what is possible until we have a proper perspective of reality. And when we don't have a proper perspective of reality, then we view things based upon how we want to tag it. Let's be honest, the law of gender is a thing. There is femininity and masculinity in every person. Bottom line up front. Every man has estrogen, every woman has testosterone. That's what it is. So when we look at it from that perspective, that should change the dynamics. When it comes down to behaviors, what we're talking about now when it comes down to behavior, what we're talking about now is how a person respond based upon their values, their morals, things of that nature. So if I respond to a thing based upon my value and morals, that doesn't make it a gender-based thing. That makes it my response based upon it. The emotions that I have within it is an indicator. If I can't self-regulate, then my emotions drive the train, and then I lash out at the thing. However, on the flip side of it, if I do know how to self regulate, then I can speak to the thing or the person in the proper context so that we can come to an understanding. It doesn't mean I'm behaving feminine. I'm not behaving based upon my feminine trait. I'm based upon the level of maturity that I have in that moment. I must agree, though, there are some things that I've seen that can be unnerving. This is probably the first time in history I've seen where a lot of men depend upon another woman, for a place to live. But let's be honest, it's not like that didn't exist in the 70s. It's not it didn't exist in the 60s. It's just a thing. So because we're
But
at
you gotta admit, you use that word loosely when you call a man depending on another woman to live. I would use that word man loosely. Because now you know man that's got his stuff together, did his A, B's, and C's, did the right thing, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, he gonna
yeah,
provide for himself and make sure you have a place to live, unless he's on the
right.
streets. Now that's taking away credit from every man that's done it right to say that's a man that will be dependent on a woman like that. I'm just
But
saying, because any
no, I
man
got
come up to me and tell me, yeah, my wife, I depended on my wife to live. I'd say, buddy, let me tell you something. You definitely ain't in my wolf pack. That's great
right,
for her, but
right.
you and me ain't communicate. You have nothing to offer me. Nothing.
But again,
I'm
even
saying,
in that is a matter of perspective.
not
I'm just
perspective, coach.
I'm,
Not modern
Fact.
day time.
I'm
Modern
not
day time, a man
saying
should be able to provide. In modern day time, a
you're
man
confused.
should be able to have a place to live. There's jobs out there, but if you
Right.
tell me he's living with a woman because
Mhm.
of she gives him a room and board, that is not a man. I'm sorry. You better go back to mom and dad.
Uh,
No,
but
no.
I don't think you hear me. I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong. I'm saying depending upon who you talk to, it's a
I
matter
need
of
to,
perspective.
I need to talk to somebody that thinks that's another man besides yourself.
I,
Then,
I got it. But what you probably here's what we all should do is understand that there's no absolute correct in any of us. There's no absolute wrong in any of us.
No.
So when we look at it from that perspective, it means that we need to hear something outside of our own paradigms so that we can have a more holistic perspective of reality. That's just what the truth is.
Okay,
I'm not,
I can
no
say
bad.
this. Me, okay, I can speak because I was born in Trinidad and I lived in Canada. It's only over here in America you guys give this simp talk if a guy show feelings and he can't talk his emotion. It's only here. Most Americans think they can determine who black is. Meanwhile, most of them never even traveled outside of the United States to see what black is. Most of them talk about Africa and they've even seen Africa. They don't even know the population of the white people in Africa. And
That's
I get
true.
that. And I get that. Okay. But it's only here in the United States I hear this simp talk, this masculinity talk. That's here. When I came here, I was like, God damn, are you guys really like at war?
When did you come here?
30 years ago?
Oh, well, brother, you can't use that as a metric anymore.
Why not? I can still use it today. I can go back to Canada. People in Canada look at you guys. No, wait. People in Canada, my brother looks at the people in the United States and America and go, are you telling me black men and black women fight like that all the time? When I tune them into these social media, you go to their social media channels, they're more trying to get together. It's only here this bickering is going on. If you go to YouTube Canada, it is not like that. That's not the algorithm.
But again, that's an all-inclusive statement, assuming that every black person in America fits that model.
Well, if you're saying what you just said about this showing emotion,
you only heard what I said from your perspective. That's the point I'm making. What you have to understand is that there are different echelons of reality. That's the point I'm making. So regardless of where you go, I promise you these conversations are happening.
We're speaking in generalities here, and let me tell you, it's not like that outside of the United States.
We're also speaking based upon 30-year-old references.
But coach, it does 30 years. I go back every year. It doesn't matter. It's still like that today.
I just asked you,
men over there still express emotion, and I seen growing up. My father was the first one to tell me, always be able to express yourself. Rather you have to cry, just get it over with. Just get it over with. I don't want to hear in between tears. Either you cry, you don't cry. If it hurt, you hurt. I seen my father break down, and my father was proud to say, "Son, I got to break down, man. This is not the time for you to be near me." I'm stepping up.
You're really proving my point. I don't think you realize that yet.
That's not what I heard come out your mouth, but all right.
Yeah, but that's my point. You're proving my point. Depending upon who you talk to, the idea of femininity and masculinity changes.
But that has nothing to do with emotion. That has to do with expression. And being able to express yourself, rather you cry, rather you sob, rather you have a bad day, rather you just want to scream. That's expression. And you guys look at it here as a simp. If he agrees with a woman, he's a simp. Yeah. If he aligns with a woman, he's a simp. Yeah. Meanwhile, the woman's right. And you guys can't even back down to give her that credit. And I don't understand that. That's here.
Hey, I can't wait till you go back and listen to this.
Ooh, come on, Antoine.
I'll listen to it again.
Come on. Now he been put on that point. That doesn't mean what you're saying.
People say that. Go back and listen. What, you think I don't know what's coming out of my mouth? I'm saying it for a reason. I don't need to go back and listen to nothing.
It's not about what's coming out of your mouth.
To be able to, when I talk with my hands, being an artist, I'm very expressive with my hands. And I'll see in the comments when I go on another channel, oh, this guy's getting emotional. Look at his hands move. Meanwhile, I'm like, have you ever been to an art show? Have you ever spoken to artists? Have you ever been to a gallery and you speak with our hands? It's like you're so uneducated. You just judge. Simp. I don't think you want to see my alpha side? Piss me off.
Right.
I think part of it, Antoine, from my perspective is sometimes I think that it's okay. I heard something beat. It's okay to like be expressive. I think it's when you move in your feelings and emotions and your expressions and you allow those to take over. I think that's when we talk about
give me an example of that.
When I talk about being simps, it's like I could be right here, I could be mad, I could be frustrated, but I can still I don't have to express all of those emotions and all of those feelings because I know that in communication, certain movements of my head, certain weight in my tones and stuff like this, it can be ineffective when I'm trying to communicate with people. So what I do is when I try to communicate, regardless of my emotional state of mind, I still try to communicate in a clear and precise way and not allow my emotions to come in between the communication. Because
That
if
I
I'm
get
talking
that.
to you and I'm saying the same thing and I'm doing like this,
No,
it's going to
that I
get a
get.
different, whatchamacallit, it's going to get a different response from you than if I'm telling you the same thing and I'm in control of my emotions.
That I get. I get that part, but I'm not talking about that particular part. I'm talking
Hmm.
about being able to express yourself, being able to show emotion, being able to cry is not a simp thing. Agreeing with a woman is not a simp thing. Agreeing because she had a point is not. You guys label that here, this, but it's not. I'm not saying my father used to get mad, My mother used to push his button, get mad, and then he just slam his hand down on the table, and she just like, okay, now I know I reached this threshold because that was it. I'm done. He would never get physical, but she knew when the hand hit the table, she knew her place as a woman. Back off. You reached the threshold. That's not acting out of femininity or being emotional. It's just he reached his threshold and he expressed it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
okay,
there's
I
nothing
got it.
wrong with that.
Now, could
And my
he?
father always said, if you don't express yourself, things get lost in translation. And your mother never understood me if I don't express myself because she gets lost in translation. And it does because people like you're trying to pick your words and not look like it. Listen, you can't make bad news sound pretty. It's still bad news. So just tell me so I can fix it and get on with it. That's all I'm saying.
For me, it's more so the misinterpretation of my emotions or feelings, or my emotions and my behavior when I'm talking to somebody. If I'm talking to somebody and I'm, doing this and I'm using my hand, blah blah blah, they may get the wrong interpretation about what I'm trying to say. So the more even keel I am, I feel like, and I think there is something about being expressive. I'm not taking that off the table. But I think that there's a level of it to where you can still have a conversation, and this is just for me personally. You don't have to be, as animated. I think there's a time and place for everything. But I think on more serious types of topics, maybe some of those things need to go out of the window. That's just my personal opinion, especially when I'm trying to get my point across. I don't want there to be any gray area if I'm trying to tell you
Yeah,
something. Like if I'm
right.
telling my son, you need to sit down and go and do what I tell you to do. I don't want, man, you need to go sit down and do what I tell you to do. Like that's going to come off different than, look, son, you need to sit down and do what I told you to do. You know what I mean? So, and you
And
take the
that's
emotion
your
out
way
of
of
it.
saying it.
I,
Yeah.
I agree with the comment in the chat because this is clearly not what I was talking about, and I don't even know how we got here. To be honest with you,
Oh, neither.